business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Steve Ramona. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the pod.
Welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. Every episode is an invitation, a reminder that business and life isn't just about profit, it's about purpose. It's about showing up with a servant's heart in every deal, every decision, every day. My guest today is going to light you up because he's lit me up. I've learned so much in 10 minutes. I could probably run and do quite well. But he's also going to motivate you. He's going to challenge you. And most importantly, you're going to walk away with tools that inspire action, both in your life and in your professional life. And before we dive in, here's your homework today, audience. How are you going to serve yourself and serve someone else today? It doesn't have to be a big to be make a big impact. Even a small act of kindness or courage can change the game. So lean in, take notes. Let's discover how servant leadership in business can create ripple effects that last far beyond the bottom line. And a quick shout out to my sponsor, Epic Impact, the 4-step storytelling framework that's transformed how I pitch, post, and podcast. If you're a coach, founder, or creative trying to connect with your audience and move them to action, this is your secret weapon. Engage, persuade, inspire, and close. I use it every day, and I love working with it. AI alone can't tell your story, but paired with the proven Epic framework, it can move mountains. So grab your free Epic Impact Starter Kit at epicimpact.com and start engaging hearts, persuading minds, and inspiring action with every message. And a quick shout out to all my guests and audience. We just got named top 20 in small business marketing. Thank you all. Heartfelt. Love you all. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being a great guest. And my guest today is going to add to that. Let's welcome to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. It's great to be with you.
ESOP, you just educated me on it before the show. Let's start with that because that's your passion. What is that?
ESOP is an employee stock ownership plan. And what an ESOP is depends upon the perspective of the person that's asking the question. So for a business owner, an ESOP is a liquidity strategy. It's an alternative to selling to private equity or to a strategic buyer. So it gives a business owner a way to cash in on their life's work in a very tax and cost-effective way. For employees of a company that sponsors an ESOP is a retirement plan. It's like a 401k plan, but instead of them having to contribute their own money and make a decision about how that money is going to be invested among a menu of mutual funds, with an ESOP, they don't make any contributions. The company funds the entire benefit. And typically, the only investment in the plan is stock of the sponsoring employer. So it's an equity-based incentive plan, which aligns the interest of the owner who is sold to the ESOP and all of the employees that work for the company. So the better the company performs, the more profitable the company is, the more money employees are going to have in their accounts when they're ready to cash in.
So everybody's collaborating together to grow the company, which is the bottom line of everything, but to grow themselves, their savings accounts as well, right?
Yeah, there is a personal incentive for making the company as profitable as possible.
Sounds like it changes the culture of the company too. How does it do that?
You know, culture is a key word in my world. First, if I talk to a business owner who during that first meeting says that culture is the key to our success, then I know that that business owner is a great candidate to do an ESOP. Because if they sell to a third party, whether it's private equity or a strategic buyer, one thing that they can be absolutely sure of is that culture is going to change. The purchaser might say after the acquisition, we're going to leave everything in place, nothing's going to change, but that never works out. Once they've paid their money to purchase your company, their culture is going to become your culture. And that's going to change the world for your employees and for your customers. People are doing business with you because they feel like they're family and that you take care of them and that you put their interests first. If you sell to a third party, that may or may not happen. And employees are working for companies for long periods of time because they enjoy the environment and the culture in which they work. So an ESOP gives a business owner a way to cash in on their life's work and assure that their employees and their customers continue to be taken care of and have the same culture and environment that they had before the transaction.
You said something powerful in business about culture change. And you've probably heard companies, you've been doing this 40 years, you told me, which is massive.
Yeah.
And by the way, anybody's that long, he knows what the heck he's talking about. Is culture change. People tell you business, I've talked to business, oh, it's what we've been doing for 30 years. I mean, we have to pivot, and you've seen that. So this can help a company if they don't have an ESOP. It's kind of a nice pivot going, I want to reward you employees. Let's do this retirement plan, right?
Correct. And so I say it's a way for business owners to take care of themselves because they're cashing in on their life's work by selling their company stock to the employees through an ESOP. So the business owner takes care of him or herself while at the same time taking care of their employees.
That's audience. You hear what he just said, taking care of the employees. He's a servant's heart. That should be first and foremost. How that looks, we're not going to answer that because it's different for every company. So Kelly, what inspires you to get in this? Because there's other retirement plans. You mentioned 401ks and others. Why ESOPs?
Well, first, I've dealt with all of those other retirement plans. So when I first graduated from law school in 1981 and got into business, our firm focused on every form of retirement plan, including ESOPs. And over the first 20 years of my career, that's what we did. We did a small number of ESOPs each year and did many 401k plans, for example. And 20 years ago, I decided that I wanted to do something that I found to be more challenging and rewarding than just focusing on 401k plans. So I sold that part of my business to the gentleman who had been my partner and helped me build that business. He's still operating that business successfully today. And that gave me the time and ability to go all in ESOPs. So for the last 20 years, that's all I've done is ESOPs. Now, how did I first get introduced to ESOPs? It's an interesting story, at least I think. And I think it resonates with many business owners because many of us got into our businesses by accident. So in 1979, I just finished my first year of law school and went to Massachusetts to work for a firm up there for the summer before returning for my second year. We're a group of pension lawyers, and we had meetings every Monday morning, and this is before email. And so the head of the department got a letter in an envelope delivered by the United States Postal Service. And in that letter, the author asked for a white paper on ESOPs. So ESOPs had only been in the law for 5 years at that point. And all of these experienced pension lawyers looked around the room at each other and said, I don't know anything about ESOPs. And so finally they decided we're going to assign this project to the kid. And in 1979, I was the kid. And so I've just been fascinated by the concept of ESOPs virtually my entire adult life.
That's a great story. Yeah, audience, there was no email at one time. I'm 64. I remember those times. We still got stuff done, but we're not going down that technology path. What is the difference from ESOPs to other retirement plans for your opinion? Why somebody as an employee would want to do this instead of the others?
Well, it would be the employer, the owner of the business, that would be making the decision about whether or not they wanted to do an ESOP. And an ESOP has about 80% of its features in common with any other type of retirement plan. So it's kind of a first cousin to a 401k plan. But there are three key differences between an ESOP and a 401k plan that make an ESOP work both for the employer and for the employee. So the first difference is that an ESOP can borrow money. It's against the law for any other type of retirement plan to borrow money. The second difference is that an ESOP can engage in certain transactions with parties in interest. And I know that was about as clear as mud, so bear with me and I'll clear that up. And then the third difference is that an ESOP is required to invest primarily in the stock of the sponsoring company. So what happens when you have a retirement plan with those three differences? The ESOP borrows money. It uses that money that it's borrowed to buy stock from the business owner. And then over time, those shares that the ESOP has purchased get allocated or divided up among the employees' retirement plan accounts. And so that's how an ESOP differs from other retirement plans. It serves not only as a retirement plan, but is also as a liquidity and succession strategy for the company's owner. So it gives the owner a way to cash in on his or her life's work while benefiting their employees at the same time.
He told me, audience, before the show, he simplifies. That's his superpower. He just proved his superpower. His cape just went on, because now I understand it completely, and the employer understands it. So the transition, I don't have an ESOP. I've got a company. How's that transition work?
The steps usually begin with the business owner having a conversation with an experienced ESOP advisor.
Yeah.
For most business owners, if they go to their lawyer or their CPA, they're probably not going to know much about ESOPs. They learned a little bit about them when they were in school. Maybe they had one client over their careers that had an ESOP. So they need to find someone who is experienced in the ESOP world. And we love working as a resource in those situations. And so they explore whether or not they might be a candidate for an ESOP and whether or not they think that it might be the right strategy for them. And so that's just a process of discussion, discovering, and education. After that, if they decide that an ESOP might be something worth exploring, then they'll hire a consultant to prepare a feasibility study. And that feasibility study will give them specific answers based on their company's financial situation and the owner's goals and objectives about whether or not an ESOP is feasible and exactly how it would work in their situation. And they'll use that feasibility study to make a decision about whether or not this is the right strategy for them. If it is, they'll hire that same consultant to lead them through the ESOP implementation process. And that might take 4 or 5 months to get completed.
Yeah, that's perfect. What's the ideal business, Kelly, that can work with an ESOP? I know it's not, I would guess I own a plumber with one employee may not be a fit. Is there guidelines, I guess is the word?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there are a couple of financial metrics that we look at. The first is, as a general rule, ESOPs work best for companies that have at least $2 million of adjusted EBITDA, but they can work for companies that have as little as 1 million. So over the last 4 years, our typical client has had $4 million of adjusted EBITDA and 95 employees. So I would say on the low end, it's $1 million of adjusted EBITDA and at least 35 employees. And then the largest company that we've worked with had 75 million of adjusted EBITDA. So I say that ESOPs are right for small and mid-sized companies, probably not right for micro-sized companies.
It's good for you because a lot of those SMBs. So you're in a good industry with a great market reach, which is fantastic. It sounds like this is a diamond in the rough that a lot of people don't know about, like you had mentioned earlier about the lawyers, and they've learned about it, educated, but they don't talk about it. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. And so one of my missions in life is to educate professional advisors about what an ESOP is, how it works, and its many tax benefits so that they can consider it and perhaps steer their business owners in the direction of at least considering it. It's not the right answer for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my world, I think of 4 potential options for business owners and their companies. One is a sale to a third party, So that might be private equity or a strategic buyer. The second being a sale to employees through an ESOP. The third being a transition of ownership to family members. And the fourth option being what I call die with your boots on. So an ESOP is not the only liquidity and succession strategy. It's not the right one for everybody, but too few business owners are made aware of it and consider it.
I'm excited for you because any business you can be in, and a lot of people don't know about it. It's a big market, which is fantastic.
My father taught me when I was a kid, he said, boy, the only thing in life that you need is an unfair advantage.
Amen to
and I have
that.
an unfair advantage because I'm in a business without much competition.
Yep. And audience, you see what he talked about educating. He said a number of times, if you're a servant's heart, that's what you're going to do. And the other thing he said, they're not all a fit. Do not fit everybody into your business if they don't. It will damage your business like crazy. So stay away from that. Well, tell us a story. I'm sure you got a story of 40 years. I can't believe you're 45 years old. Can't believe you're doing 40. Okay, he's 48. His apologies. Started young. Tell us a story or two of successful ESOPs that you work with businesses.
Let me tell you my favorite story.
Okay.
This is one of our larger clients. So most of our clients are much smaller than this. But this is a company that when we began working with them, they had 1,200 employees. It's a very highly educated workforce. 200 of those 1,200 employees had a PhD in engineering or physics. So this is a very successful company, very smart employees. We did an ESOP. It was very successful. The company grew like crazy because everybody's interests were aligned. 10 years later, they had grown from 1,200 employees to 2,200 employees. They sold the company to a big international French company for $1.65 billion. And so, expenses get deducted from that, and then the net amount is divided up among 2,200 people. So a year after this transaction closed, I was in the town where this business had been located and went to dinner with the former CEO of the company who was running the business when it was sold. And we were talking about how successful it was and how his employees were so happy. And he said, Kelly, I got to tell you my favorite story. He said, I've always had an open door policy. He's the CEO of a 2,200 employee company. And somebody walked in, one of the lowest paid employees in the company, but had been there 30 years. And he said, boss, we had just gone to this meeting where you explained the sale of the company and what that was going to mean to us in our ESOP accounts. And he said, I appreciate, the explanation, but he said, I really didn't understand what that meant for me. Could you boil it down? So the CEO gets on the computer and he says to this guy, it means that you're going to receive a distribution from your ESOP account of over $4 million. This person had never made $80,000 in his career. And he said, boss, that is going to change the history or the future of my entire family. He said, I'm going to set up a fund where all of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and their children and great-grandchildren will be able to go to college. That's what I'm going to use this money for. And so ESOPs change lives. A retirement plan, a 401k plan, is a nice nest egg, but an ESOP, like in this situation, can be a wealth creation vehicle. And to me, there's nothing more gratifying than closing an ESOP transaction and seeing how excited the owner is for himself and his family, and then 10 years later, go back and see how well it's worked out for their employees.
That is an incredible legacy he left. Those employees will never forget him the rest of his life. And all it took was just taking some money. And I say this, I'm not saying it, but he just really took money to put it in the ESOP so it can grow and compound like finances do. And then years later, so across the board. So he got $4 million across the board. Those employees got millions, each employee.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you take 1.65 billion and divide it among 2,200 people. That's a lot of money.
Okay, audience, Kelly's my new best friend, and I will stay connected with him, and I will anyways, because definitely a bunch of referrals for you. But what does the future of ESOPs look like? I mean, you've done this 20 years, you're passionate about it. What do you see it looks like in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, I think it's only going to get better. ESOPs are supported by Republicans and Democrats. It's one of the very few things that both parties agree on. Republicans love the tax benefits that are associated with ESOPs, so they support ESOPs because of the tax benefits for small businesses. Democrats support ESOPs because it is a form of wealth redistribution. If I'm a business owner and I sell to private equity, the way many people in the government would view that is a rich person, the business owner, selling to other rich people, the investors in the private equity fund. If instead I sell to my employees, then the government would view that as a rich person taking care of workers. And so that's why Democrats support ESOPs. So the biggest supporter of ESOPs in the Congress is Bernie Sanders. But you also have the most conservative Republicans supporting ESOPs. So I think that the future of ESOPs is very bright. We have this silver tsunami, the aging of the baby boom generation. And so we've got business owners that are looking for exit strategies because they're at that age and that point in life. And the more that they're able to learn about ESOPs, the more ESOP transactions that are going to be done. When I first started doing exclusively ESOPs, we did about 4 a year. Now we're doing 12 a year.
Not surprised.
So the ESOP market is really growing.
Good. Good for you, but good for those people coming aboard as your clients because everybody wins. And audience, I'm going to make an announcement right now. Kelly doesn't know this. I'm going to start a business so I can hire Kelly because you're doing the servant's heart business. And audience here, and what I love about Kelly, you're making money doing it. You're successful. You're not home, and that's the way it should be. When you serve and bring value, you need to be giving those gifts back. And that's the value of money. I love what you're doing. Oh my gosh, this is so good.
I think one of the things that you and your audience would really like is I wrote an article a few years ago for an academic journal, and the title of the article is ESOPs and Compassionate Capitalism. And I think that that's what ESOPs are all about, doing well for the business owner while doing well for the company's employees. That's compassionate capitalism.
Yep. And before we end the show, talk about your book, because people, you're still educating. You're educating on podcasts with your clients, but you also have that book.
Well, in 2008, the Great Recession began officially September 15th of that year, and nobody was doing ESOPs in 2008 and 2009. And so I didn't have anything to do. I don't deal well with boredom. And so I wrote a book called The ESOP Coach. It's the only book out there on the market that was written for business owners. There are plenty of ESOP books written for lawyers and CPAs. They're very technical. This book is not technical. This book is designed to communicate what an ESOP is, how it works, its tax benefits in plain English with lots of case studies. And so if one of your listeners is interested, they can go to Amazon, search my last name or search for ESOP Coach, and they'll find the book.
And I'll get the show notes too, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's end with a fun question. Get to know Kelly outside business, get to know him as a person. So I've got a table or a restaurant reserved for you, table for 4. You'll sit on one of the chairs, obviously. But in the 3 empty chairs, who would you invite, whether they're dead or alive, and want to talk to, get to know? And what food would you order for the table?
I would definitely invite my ESOP mentor, a guy named Jerry Kaplan, who graduated from UCLA undergrad, Harvard Law School, and is widely considered the godfather of the ESOP business. He was such a great mentor, and he's the one is brilliant as the guy was. I worked with him for 10 years and only heard him mention one Internal Revenue Code site, where most tax lawyers, that's all they do is talk code. He taught me how to communicate ESOPs in simple business owner language. So I would definitely have Jerry there. I have a good friend who unfortunately died about a year ago, who was a partner in one of the big four accounting firms, who was just a great guy and had an incredible dry sense of humor. I'd bring Wade back and have dinner with him, and he and Jerry would get along brilliantly. And then, of course, I'd invite my wife, who would love meeting these guys who she never met. And we'd probably order a big Italian meal, maybe some seafood.
Yeah, I got to bring a fifth chair. And once you talk about seafood, and especially Italian food, I'm all in. Kelly, you made financial information so simple. I'm understanding. If I could understand, I'm sure 90% of the audience understood. I appreciate that because it's such a complex industry. We all know that. Thank you for being a blessing. I know people listening, especially business owners, going, how do I get a hold of Kelly? So how can they find you?
Well, our website is www.execfin.com. That's EXECFIN.com. And we've got lots of information there that is educational in nature. It's not a sales pitch website. It's really oriented to educating people about ESOPs. So you can go there, and you can also send an email, and either me or my partner will be glad to respond to that.
Beautiful. And there's probably a contact page on there too if you want to reach out. I'll have
Right.
it all in the show notes. I'll have the book in the show notes so you can reach out if you're interested. And I'm going to tell you right now, audience, if any of you are business owners with that model, reach out to him. He's going to talk to you for free. You're not going to charge you. And if it's a fit, you can maybe give your employee $4 million. How cool would that be in the next 10, 15, 20 years? Kelly, thanks again. Appreciate you taking the time. It's been such an incredible show. Audience, here's your homework at the end. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And here's why. Yeah, I like my numbers and the thousands of people have subscribed, but these are gifts. And you're listening, you go, my brother-in-law has a business. Man, he needs ESOPs. Well, instead of coming out to me and reaching him, maybe you should share the link for 10 minutes, 15 minutes and listen about Kelly, his passion for this, the results he's getting, how simple he makes it. And he reaches out to Kelly and puts an ESOP in his business, and he leaves that kind of legacy. What'd you do for him? You gave him a gift. You impacted his life. And that's any podcast. Doesn't have to be mine. Any podcast that resonates that you can give as a gift, please do that because they're so powerful. With that being said, thank you all. Me and Will want to thank all of you, Kelly, for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you all in the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day, everyone.